Nikki, I'm going to pass the ball to you and ask you if you can share your experiences of service delivery from a local authority perspective from Dundee City Council. So, Nikki, I'm going to throw the ball to you. Hope you've got your good catching hands on. Go.
Okay, cheers Marion. Hello everybody. I'm going to try and share my screen to show a bit of a presentation. It's not particularly illuminating, but I mean you can't see me reading off my notes. Just to say that, recognise that this is coming from a local authority perspective with all those kind of resources we have in a local authority to assist us with health and safety. And also, a lot of this is a judgment. We're all negotiating our way through kind of these turbulent times, and we've had to make some really difficult decisions and judgments here. So everything I'm saying here, it maybe you make a different decision, or it was wrong, or it was right. But we're just going to give you a bit of a flavour of what we did in Dundee, and hopefully it'll be of some use to you. So after the initial kind of reaction phase through the summer, where CLD and Dundee were at the forefront of delivering like emergency food parcels and medicine and things like that, we started to develop a CLD recovery plan. We undertook a series of community engagement exercises, some of which are still ongoing, to identify the issues that people have, to make sure that they get their voice heard, and to evidence the need for our CLD recovery plan. So as a CLD service, we decided that our recovery plan needed to be able to mitigate harms, and as such needed a blended approach of online, telephone, face-to-face support. That we needed safe, well-managed spaces to do this, and they had to be safe both for staff and for participants. We put in a plan to use the CLD guidance to reopen community centres to deliver essential CLD services. Our overriding criteria was what could be delivered within the guidance, and about being clear about what social or health harm was being mitigated. So we needed to bring the community on board with this, and for local management groups who are involved with the community centres to understand that it's not just enough that people want to get together socially, and that's a really hard conversation to have for people, but to ask themselves kind of key questions. Is it mitigating poverty, isolation, mental illness or mental poor health? Is there a learning element? You know, it's not just for, I say just because that isolation thing is really important, but it's not just for kind of leisure. It needs to be something that's really essential that we put on. So working very closely with our health and safety colleagues in the council, we took a kind of three-pronged approach to this. So the first was places, the community centres themselves. Will they be safe for staff and users? The second one was the people. What protective measures were we going to put in place to ensure the well-being of both the staff and the users, especially given the vulnerability that many of our users have? And the third one was the provision itself. What activities are required to mitigate harm, as I said, just opposed to people wanting to kind of come together. So the overarching tool we've used for all of this are COVID risk assessments, which have to be signed off by our health and safety advisor within the council. So working through the CLD guidance and the HSE guidance, we ensured the buildings were compliant. We did, you know, the practical things about redesigning the spaces to allow for social distancing, flow of people through the building. We moved to pre-booked access only, both for delivery and any access needed for desk space. Groups and individuals are met at the door. Their staggered entry times are in place. All the rooms have got identified maximum room capacity. We've looked at ventilation, the use of shared space and toilets. Dundee City Council ensured that we had sanitation stations installed in identified risk points throughout the building. And there's a system put in place for weekly PPE orders for the building as well. We identified maximum numbers in the building any one time and the maximum numbers in rooms, and that's at a greatly reduced capacity than what we were doing before. So for example, before an ESOL class might have had 20, 24 people in it. Now we're talking 6 people. If we are doing ESOL face-to-face, a lot of that has moved to online. That's the other thing. We are doing some face-to-face, but only where there is no alternative. A lot of the youth work, adult learning, ESOL provision has all moved online where that's been possible. Face covering guidance is followed. Track and trace is in place in every building. There's clear signage throughout the buildings to display and reinforce that. And prior to opening for community access, every staff member has to complete a COVID building induction and in turn complete this with the users within their group. There's an enhanced cleaning regime in place, and we've developed protocol for dealing with the identification of a positive or suspected COVID case in a community centre. So all this was done in consultation with local management groups, local people, trade union reps and our health and safety reps within the council. So what we've done is the measures put in place for the operation of the buildings are key to help support people, but we also have additional measures in place for staff as well. So for the aspects of work staff can do from home, this is still the default, but I've also recognised that some staff are struggling with space and resources. I mean, some people are working off a laptop off their knee, sitting on a couch at home, and you know, it's a real concern for us. So we have made some, again, greatly reduced capacities with all the health and safety stuff in place, but we have made some staff offices within community centres available for staff as well. We've put in place individual risk assessments for high risk individuals and groups. So we're looking to do stuff like minimise travel and the shared use of space by multiple groups. We've had some really difficult conversations with some of our groups as well. So for example, the bingo group who come in, who are all over 70, while recognising that the social isolation aspect for them, we've just had to say no to that because the profile of the people who are coming in, combined with where Dundee are at the moment in level 3, it just wouldn't be safe to have that level of provision in. But what we've done instead of that is we've said to that bingo group, okay, so instead of 30 of you coming along, what we'll do is 4 or 5 of you can come along at a time. And we're going to, instead of giving you a bingo session, we're going to get somebody from our community health team to come in and discuss with you about how you can combat isolation or any kind of health issues. So there's a health element to it, there's a learning element to it, but they are still getting to come in to get their cup of tea and see each other and kind of reducing that sort of isolation. So I think that idea that people just want to be together, that's been the hardest one for both staff and for community members. People are just desperate to return to being together and sometimes find it difficult to see the rationale for why it's not allowed. And then on the other hand, we've got other community reps who are so scared that they don't actually want to come back into buildings. So some of that community activity is kind of fallen off as well. So I guess in summary, what I would say is we've mapped our provision out against the 5 COVID levels. So here's what we could do, no matter, so we've done these at level 0 to level 5, here's what we could do in each of those levels. So that's the sort of planning that we've done. So if we've moved into level 3, we've updated our risk assessments, moved some of our delivery online. The likes of LCPPs, community councils that we've designated as not absolutely essential, they're either online or they're not happening at the moment. Whereas some of the stuff that's around about youth work, adult learning, community food provision, food drop-ins, food banks and stuff, we're still doing work like that on a kind of face-to-face basis. So we shared our work with third sector colleagues across the city as well, and we've also supported some community projects in the third sector to open. And we've been very fortunate to be able to call on support from our environmental health colleagues and health and safety colleagues to kind of support with that. So while it has been and continues to be a challenge, we've kind of used the guidance to satisfy the council's corporate oversight group that we have the permissions and measures in place to operate and do what we're doing. So it continues to be a balancing act, and we're all going to have to make judgments. I'd say the Scottish Government guidance, the CLD guidance has been extremely helpful, but you're still going to need to make those judgments on the ground. And, you know, we continue to do it, but as we always do in CLD, with that kind of overarching aim of reducing inequalities and making sure that the needs of the people in the community come first. So I hope that was quick enough, Marion.
Well done, Nicky. You are the only speaker that's come in 2 minutes under.